It's 4 p.m. in my factory in Miripur, and it's inside 37 or 38 Celsius. What's happening to work and what's happening to workers as the global temperature rises and as heat waves grow in duration, intensity in places like Bangladesh. The worst effects of climate breakdown are felt by low-wage workers anywhere in the world. This difference between the adaptive industry and the non-adaptive industry, that gap gets pretty wide. By 2030, it's already a 20% difference.
So there is a high risk of the job losses. Hello everybody, welcome to our regular discussion on the labor market issues, future of jobs and work. I am your host, Nazmul Hossain Ovi, who has been discussing these things with all of you. And today in our second episode, as I promised, that we will discuss some more things with Mr. Jason Judd, who was there in our first episode discussing the climate issues, heat stress, adaptiveness, setting the heat standards, and also coming up with a kind of wage policy from the government side, focusing on the living wage. So those are the discussions that we had, and he gave some examples from the other Asian countries where Global Labor Institution of Cornell University ILR School is extensively working through their research and analysis. So I think today we will discuss on some of the global level initiatives, role of the partners and the stakeholders, and then go a little bit deep into the current research that Cornell GLI ILR School is doing for Bangladesh at this moment. So I think, Jason, welcome you again for the second episode. And as you have discussed rigorously in our first episode about many important things, taking those discussion, like especially the two things that you said that in the last part of our discussion, that setting a kind of benchmark and a standard for the industrial heat is a kind of first priority for the government to set it, instead of this tolerable heat as a kind of vague and loosely connected measure that we have now in the labor law. And the second one you spoke was focusing on the living wages and setting the wages and solving the problems for the workers with wage issues and setting a wage that can work as an instrument to give them the compensation for whatever they are facing. So I think taking these things to partnership, stakeholder level involvement, what do you think? I mean, what could be the role of the international community, including brands, buyers, UN agencies, and also the international development banks, IFIs, and obviously including ILO, because International Labour Organization has been also putting an effort in this similar area of labor rights and labor issues in the country for a long time. So what do you envision that how these players can play a big role and a vital role to fix this threat of heat stress for the industrial workers?
Yeah, I think they can all contribute. The onus is here in Bangladesh. It belongs to government, employers, workers, worker organizations. But there are things that those who are interested in Bangladesh, who are making money here in Bangladesh, can do. When it comes to setting, I'll talk first about a heat standard, and then talk about wage. The brands that are buying here, the fashion brands that are buying H&M, PVH, Gap, dozens of others, most of them do not address this problem of extreme heat or climate breakdown and its effect on workers generally. There are some exceptions, brands that have told their partners, their suppliers, they have to keep work within a certain temperature range. There's a low end, and the high end is typically 32, 33, 34. Of the brands that have set clear standards, let's see, there's just a handful. Levi's, Nike, VF. There are a couple of others, and there are other brands that are following suit. But most workers, most employers are not covered by a code of conduct that sets and enforces a standard. We look to these private voluntary regulation schemes because here in Bangladesh, the government has, on this issue and many others, either not set a standard or is not enforcing the standard. The groups that these brands belong to, these multi-stakeholder groups, most of them have also failed to set a standard. So these are pretty basic steps they need to take quickly. Some of them, brands, multi-stakeholder groups, others, they look to the ILO and say, well, we'll do something when the ILO has set a standard. We'll follow the ILO. And the ILO is famously slow and cautious. And any standard setting on heat would be contentious, and it would have to be hammered out between workers, employers, and governments. So it could be, it may well happen, in the next year. That seems unlikely. It's more likely that something will follow in the next, 3 or 4 or 5 years. And workers who are here in Bangladesh or elsewhere working in 37, 38, 39 Celsius environments shouldn't be told to wait on the ILO. On wages, worth noting the ILO has made some progress on its approach to living wages. It now uses the term.
Right. At least they're using it, and there is.
Yeah, after 3 decades, they've managed to adopt the term. There's some progress there. The ILO's big contribution here is to encourage governments to adopt minimum wage setting processes that take into account changes in the business environment, employment levels, changes in price levels, skills, etc. In most of the major apparel producing countries with which Bangladesh competes, they're now setting or resetting, reviewing and revising minimum wages on an annual basis. So you look at their minimum wages and they climb in this sort of stepwise way, year after year.
More frequent,
it's annual.
Yeah, it's annual.
Almost without exception. The countries that we studied in a paper about wage setting in Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, the graphs of their minimum wage steps. Bangladesh is cliffs. 5 years wait, a jump, another 5 years of waiting, a jump, another 5 years. I mean, this has 2 obvious effects. One is it forces workers to wait year after year after year for meaningful adjustment in their wages. So it induces poverty. It can, in some instances, lead to real declines, right? Inflation, adjusted wages are falling over time. Workers are becoming poorer as they wait for the BGMEA and the government to decide what the new number is going to be. The other impact is that it effectively suppresses wages and therefore prices. And it is one of the bases, arguably the basis, for Bangladesh's competitiveness vis-a-vis Vietnam, Cambodia, and other competitors.
Lower wage.
Yeah, it's a political choice to hold wages down, and that keeps prices low, and that keeps buyers buying.
No, perfect. I mean, that's exactly rightfully you mentioned that if the wage revision is taking place after every 5-6 years, I mean, a lot of people are getting into the poverty trap. And as well as the real wage of Bangladesh, as I have worked some time ago with the Bangladesh wage issues, is sometimes even is showing a negative growth, the real wage growth of Bangladesh, because of this very weight that the country is making the workers to have a new revised minimum wage. I mean, on these issues, I think the audience and whoever is listening to us, some policymakers, I hope that there is a good hint for us from the experience that Cornell GLI of ILR School is working, and especially Jason has suggested so far. I think some of those definitely need further detailed discussion, which we will try to do at some point. But now getting into the research work that you are doing in Bangladesh currently, some of this I am aware, but I would definitely like to hear from you for our audience that the current research on the heat stress of the apparel industry of Bangladesh, how you are doing this, what is the objective, and how some of the findings and solutions of this research will lead us.
So it's easy enough to say the government should set a standard, employers should follow it, temperatures in factories where there's excessive heat should reduce it. The natural and immediate response from the employer, from the owners, is the price that we're getting for this product isn't enough to cool this entire factory. It's massive, and air conditioning is enormously expensive. Yeah, but it's not air conditioning that we're talking about. We're talking about a suite of active and passive cooling systems that could bring a sewing or washing or ironing area down from 37 or 38 or 39 Celsius to something tolerable. For example, 32 Celsius. And it's easy enough to say that. You should make these 5 or 6 investments and reduce the temperature. Your productivity, worker productivity will bounce back, and you'll have a positive return on the investment. It's one thing to say that to an employer or an owner, but you really have to be able to demonstrate that the numbers work before they'll be willing to take a chance. We made the recommendations in the first 2 rounds of research, but knew that we'd have to come to this quest. We'd have to run the numbers. So the round of research that we're engaged in now, you're involved, Brack University is involved, BCWS is involved. We're doing a couple of things. One is we're collecting data inside 10 RMG factories. What are the temperatures and humidity levels in the different areas? We can track that every 30 minutes, every hour. We can see all day long what the temperature and the humidity levels are. And we can see when they're rising to excessive levels, when it's 36 or 37 or 38 in a work area in the middle of the afternoon in September or August or July, or it's 38 and 39 in May or June. So we're collecting that data. Those are just examples I was giving. Not all the factories that we're in see those temperatures, but some of them clearly have problems, and managers and workers alike are interested in dealing with them. So we get that data. We then integrate it with productivity data, so that we can see what the interaction is between workers' productivity and the heat levels. And we know from the academic literature that as heat rises, as you get to 30 and 32 and 35 Celsius, workers' productivity fall, and then it goes down quite quickly. So employers are losing money. Workers arguably are losing wages because of the slowdown in their output. So there's a business case for bringing down the temperature and recouping, clawing back some of that lost productivity. What will it cost? Is it $300,000 US, or is it $3 million? Will I recoup? Will the return on the investment be positive? And how long will it take? So all of those questions we're answering in the round of research that we're doing now. We'll be running the numbers from these 10 factories, and we'll present them in finding March or April of 2026. We're also collecting temperature and humidity data inside workers' homes. We want to know what the temperatures there are overnight. And we'll ask a similar set of questions. What needs doing to bring down these temperatures so that workers' health is safeguarded and they're able to keep at it for the sake of their families?
So there might be a questions of that, who pays what, who invests where, right? So those kind of eye-openers will be coming from the research study that we will be completing in some months.
And the last question that we'll answer on sort of both sides of the equation: what are the physical investments at the factory level? What are the social investments that need to be made in workers' lives? Who's going to pay for that? So the question of finance and funding will also address in what we publish in the new year.
No, obviously, and thanks. And I think it's amazing. And once this research is done, as a part of the team, obviously, I will be also waiting for the data and the findings and the solutions, and hope that this can be a good eye opener to the stakeholders who have been working in the similar space. And of course, I mean, I hear just transition, sustainability is something that people keep discussing in every other seminar in the country, like many other countries. But sometimes it has been discussed at a very high and superficial level, where you really don't have the breakdown of those things to come up with solutions for sectors, for workers, for employers, for investors. So I think this kind of research will be an eye-opener to lots of the key stakeholders who would be probably replicating similar things in their work for different sectors or the same sector for scaling up. Thanks everybody, and it was nice discussing. I hope you had a good time while listening to it. So thanks a lot.